all know out there, there are two types of atmospheres we can choose to be. Two types of atmospheres we can choose to be as leaders. And they're what I call carriers and converters. If we're not leading from a place of authenticity, a place of congruency with our own values, we're not going to be happy. And our people aren't going to be happy. They're certainly not going to trust us. So my big lesson on authenticity is to be you. Well, with this caveat, be you, unless you're an ass, then be a slightly nicer version of you. When I'm talking about being a sponge, I'm talking about being a good communicator. That we can have all the stress in our lives from bad communication. That when we're a sponge, we listen, we learn, we absorb. We understand that communication is a two-way street, and we work real hard to keep both lanes open. But let's face it, I mean, communication is one of those things we're still not getting exactly right. We've been doing it since the beginning of time, but still we're not getting it 100%. Here's the only secret to leading people is that it's all about people. That's the only big secret. So some of the things I'm going to share with you today are just different ways that we can, connect with other people to create a place where people want to be, because today's workforce, I mean, leadership's leadership. Nothing's really changed on the face of leadership for years. What's changing is the workforce. And then we have to have ways to connect with other people if we're really going to create a workforce where people want to be, where people want to innovate, where people are creative, and they stay for the long term. We got to learn how to put a little emotion behind the emotion and act as if. Is that we can have all the happy talk we want, but if we're not doing something with it, it means absolutely nothing. The science has shown that there's a biochemical link between what we do, what we think, and how we feel. Just the mere fact of sitting up straight in our chairs with our shoulders back and our head up can actually improve our mood. Another lesson I learned is that we need, as leaders, to communicate it again. That our message sometimes gets garbled. I mean, we keep getting faster and faster at how we communicate, but still, the message gets misconstrued. People are hearing something different. I mean, being quick to listen, and when we're listening, that means that we're not talking. That only 7% of the words we use are actually even important. The other 93% come from everything else. And their facial expressions, our body language, our vocal variety. I mean, listening is, in essence, a full body event. I mean, we have to listen, for feelings. We have to listen with empathy. I mean, I'm a firm believer that the best present you can ever give your people is your actual presence. Attitude trumps aptitude. I mean, I would rather have a team of people that were really enthusiastic and didn't know anything than a bunch of people that knew everything but had a laissez-faire or attitude of, I don't really want to do anything. But this starts with us as leaders, that we set the tone, we set the pace, that our attitude impacts other people. That emotions are contagious. It's a condition called emotional contagion. It passes from person to person, both positive and negative. And as leaders, what's nice is that when we're tough enough to laugh at our own mistakes, it gives our people the permission to do the same. That if you're really that strong enough to take yourself lightly and laugh at your own mistakes, then they're not going to be as worried about making a mistake. And you can really find that learning. So you're not only just championing yourself, but you're championing your team as well. You're helping to create this atmosphere of risk without fear of a reprise. You think about that, how a lot of us grew up in our jobs. Is that we were afraid to do this, we're afraid to do that, we're afraid to anything. Oh, we got to wait for the next email, we got to wait for the next call, we got to wait for all these different things, and that's great. But sometimes we have to step out, and if we make a mistake, we can try to find the humor in it. So she went through, thumbed through my calendar, and of course she picked New Orleans. Not exactly where you want to take your daughter, okay? And before I tell you the rest of the story, I have to tell you that there are a couple things you don't want to hear your daughter say as you're walking down Bourbon Street. The first thing you don't want to hear your daughter say as you're walking down Bourbon Street is that you're walking along, she's seeing people drinking, she's like, you mean you can walk around here and drink? I said, well, yeah. She's like, I am so moving here if this Army thing doesn't work out. The second thing you want to hear your daughter say is you're walking down Bourbon Street, you're walking along, she's looking at women in the doorway, she's like, she a stripper? And I was like, well, yeah. She's like, she's disgusting. I could be a stripper. Next thing that I learned was that we not only need to champion our teams, we also need to champion ourselves. Is that sometimes it's easy to champion our teams as leaders. It just is. We go in the battle cries, our team's awesome, we do all this, but I'll tell you what, it's a lot more difficult for us to champion ourselves. If you're anything like me, and I'll guarantee that 99.9% of you are, because you're here at a conference, you're trying to learn more, is that you're type A, you're driven, And if you make a mistake, you'll continually beat yourself up for it. I know I do. It's like, oh, how come I didn't do this? Why didn't I say that? I should have done it like this. I should have done it like that. Is that we don't give ourselves the same latitude as we give the people around us. And if we're, you tie this back with keeping our own attitude in check. And if we're going to keep our own attitude in check, we've also got to champion ourselves. We've got to give ourselves the same latitude as the people around us. A quote that I really like, it's we don't remember days, we'll remember moments. And in life, that's all we have, are all these different discombobulated moments. We've got moments when things are going great, just the way they should be with our teams. And we have not so good moments when this is going wrong and that's going wrong, and sometimes the weight of all the things that we're feeling are down upon us. But the nice thing is that we also have these different moments of choice, that we can choose how we're going to act and how we're going to interact with our environment. That we can choose to keep doing the same thing we're always doing, to maintain the status quo, to not rock the boat, or we can choose something a little bit different. We can say, hey, how can I do this bigger? How can I do this better? How can I do this a little more different? How can I leave more of a legacy with the people around me? I wish for you that you're able to find that thing and shift whatever kind of road you need to get where you need to go. I'm Chip Lutz. Thank you very much.